Tonight, 2 dead and 1 injured after a horror crash at Lincoln Gap, while another driver is lucky to be alive after driving his car off a cliff.
From our 7 Spencer Gulf Studios, your nightly news with Madeline Kerr begins now.
Good evening. It's been another tragic day on Spencer Gulf roads. 2 people, both from Whyalla, have died after their cars collided at Lincoln Gap. Police have called on drivers to be extra careful after a horror start to the year on South Australian roads. Daniel Pizarro reports from the scene.
Maddie, behind me is another tragedy on South Australia's roads, this time on the Lincoln Highway, where a 2-vehicle accident has sadly turned fatal. Tarpaulins cover 2 Toyotas, only in part masking the horror that claimed 2 more lives on our roads. The crash happened around 7:30 this morning, not far from the still smouldering water tanks filled with burning tyres. A 37-year-old Whyalla woman driving a Toyota RAV4 and a 35-year-old man, the driver of a Toyota Hilux from Whyalla Stewart, both died at the scene. Injured was a 27-year-old passenger in the Hilux, who is now recovering in Whyalla Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The crash closed the Lincoln Highway in both directions for the rest of the day. Motorists forced a detour through Iron Knob. It's the second crash in the region in the past 2 weeks, after a fatal accident near Quorn, which killed 1 person. The opposition leader calling for action.
Obviously, we are devastated to hear the news of 2 more road fatalities, this time in the Lincoln Highway, people not being able to return home to their loved ones, the shock, the tragedy of that. You have to think of the humanity behind the statistics.
We keep emphasising that we cannot tolerate the risks that people take on the road. This is significantly contributing to lives being lost and serious injuries which change people's lives.
Today's crash takes South Australia's road death toll to 26. That's compared to 12 at the same time last year. Police are taking their time with the investigation and there is no known cause as to today's tragedy. Maddie, back to you.
Daniel Pizarro reporting there from Lincoln Gap. Meanwhile, there's been a lucky escape for a man whose car ran off a cliff at Fishery Bay. The alarm was raised after the 60-year-old's ute dropped off the edge of a cliffside car park just south of Port Lincoln. The driver miraculously suffered only minor injuries but was taken to hospital for treatment. Police are calling on witnesses to contact Crime Stoppers to try and get a better understanding of what happened. And the poor state of roads has dominated a visit to Fisherman Bay by the Premier and several of his cabinet ministers. Locals say a key access route is among the most neglected in the state. Annabelle Francis travelled there with the Premier and members of Barunga West Council, who are calling for action.
Inspecting the worst road in the region. Peter Malinauskas and a handful of country cabinet ministers given a first-hand experience of Upper York Road.
Modern vehicles these days have lane departure, and that triggers on that section of road because it is quite narrow. Other roads around the state have had widening for safety reasons, and our community think this road deserves that as well.
The 31-kilometre stretch between Port Broughton and Butte is viewed by ratepayers as the most neglected state government-owned road in the region.
I mean, the lane widths vary from 2.5 metres to 3.1 metres, and it's quite windy. There was some patch work done a few years back, but it's in need of an upgrade.
Regular users of the road say it's hard to drive in a straight line, as majority of the bitumen has no sealed shoulders. However, it wasn't all bad news, as council showcased the historic developments happening in Fisherman Bay.
It was great for us here at Barunga West Council because we haven't had ministers come here for quite some time, so to have the Premier and 2 ministers, Minister Brock and Minister Champion, come here and talk to our Mayor and staff members, and to actually go out on site and look at the Fisherman Bay development and how we've managed to enable that.
Let's hope the horror start to the year encourages the state government to take action on this notorious stretch of road. Annabelle Francis, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Elders from across the region have gathered to celebrate the opening of a new Aboriginal Community Service Centre in Whyalla. The hub will provide high-quality aged care services in a new, welcoming setting.
Multiple generations excited about their future in Whyalla. Today, Aboriginal Community Services opened the doors of their new office on Jenkins Avenue. The non-profit expanding into Whyalla to provide home care packages for elders in the community. It comes after the organisation's successful launch in Port Lincoln last year.
We've advanced that much that we've had to look at accommodation for an office here in Whyalla, which is absolutely excellent.
Local elders welcoming the organisation, excited to have another channel of support.
You know, in the past, how it was hard to bring an health for our old people. Then from there, we've got Nanyara now, and we've got this.
A service that they can count on, and a service that actually delivers is probably the biggest and best thing.
Operators say their service allows elders to receive care in their own homes, allowing them to continue living with family instead of having to move into an aged care facility.
We've got our own, and I think that's where, we're here to stay.
ACS started in about 1995 with 4 people on a budget of $250,000. As it is now, and like I said, we're getting bigger, we're about nearly 22 million now, with more than 160 staff.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come, ambitious plans to bring Broken Hill's Imperial Lakes back to its former glory. And twice in 2 weeks, thieves target a Port Lincoln business, stealing expensive e-bikes. Welcome back. Tonight marks 1 week since the tyre fire was deliberately lit at Lincoln Gap. An estimated 1 million tyres are still smouldering, with plumes of smoke continuing to waft into the air and over the roads. Officers are still on the hunt for anyone with dash cam in the hours between 11 p.m. last Wednesday and 1:40 a.m. on Thursday. Abandoned for the past 60 years, Landcare Broken Hill is bringing Imperial Lakes back to life. The organisation wants locals and tourists to enjoy a nature park with a difference.
Once a thriving oasis where families would picnic and play, Landcare keen to bring Imperial Lakes back to its glory days.
It's essentially an environmental expo park for a range of outdoor recreational activities, as well as nature conservation programs.
Keen to transform the area into a thriving tourist attraction, Simon snapped up the hidden gem 6 weeks ago. The lakes will also double as a training ground for park management and ecotourism.
Vocational training for people who want to be involved in park management and environmental management, and of course with ecotourism, which is the fourth theme of our Imperial Lakes Nature Park.
Vandals have sabotaged attempts to get the park back up to scratch. Volunteers and the park ranger confronted with antisocial behaviour.
So these people that come in destroy the fences, and they've stolen tools and basically conducted themselves in a socially unfriendly way.
In response, Landcare is ramping up security to deter trespassers from damaging their land.
Well, you'll understand that it's not appropriate for me to describe the security measures, but it would be fair to say that a wide range of measures are being taken, have been taken, and more will be put into place.
Joshua Mercer, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
A Port Lincoln business has been the target of 2 robberies in only 2 weeks. The thefts are already seriously impacting their day-to-day operations.
The team at Australian Coastal Safaris has been left scratching their heads after 9 of their e-bikes were stolen over the past 2 weeks.
We're feeling really frustrated, completely overwhelmed, and these bikes are part of the business.
The missing bikes have already taken a significant toll on the business, with travellers from the cruise ship docked in Port Lincoln yesterday left disappointed as their bike bookings had to be cancelled.
We've got quite a few future bookings as well, which now we're going to not be able to utilise.
To replace all the stolen bikes will cost an estimated $45,000.
The value of the bikes is $5,500 each bike, and we've actually had 9 bikes gone, so it's not very good.
With cameras and a security alarm being installed today, Australian Coastal Safaris are hoping this will keep their equipment safe.
We've had somebody that's offered to lend us some motion sensors, some cameras, which are amazing, so we'll be putting them in straight away.
It's hoped these new security measures will deter thieves from causing any further damage. Anyone with information about the whereabouts of the stolen bikes is urged to contact Port Lincoln Police Station or Crime Stoppers. Alison Hall, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. Thousands of fish dead as water recedes in Menindee. And with sowing season just around the corner, Spencer Gulf farmers to meet up and discuss the last harvest. Welcome back. As the floodwater recedes along the lower Darling River, a grim discovery has been made. Thousands of displaced fish lying dead on the dried up ground.
The death toll is in the thousands. The majority are carp and bony herring, with a few unlucky Murray cod and yabbies.
Unfortunately, with the river going down, we've brought a lot of black water back into the river system, into the actual river itself.
Hypoxic black water is a naturally occurring event where large quantities of fish, bacteria, algae and other organic matter deplete the oxygen levels.
And that water now has come back into the river as the water has receded. And unfortunately that has resulted in a bit of a fish kill at the present moment.
While black water is concerning, Greg says it shouldn't impact the drinking water.
While there is black water, the water quality in the actual river is probably poor with the dead fish. However, from a drinking aspect through our water treatment plants, the water quality is fine.
The Department of Primary Industries now working with partner agencies to ensure water releases have the right amount of oxygen. The DPI will also undertake sampling of the fish population between the Weir 32 and the Menindee Main Weir once more flooding has receded. 7 Spencer Gulf Nightly News will have more on this developing story in the coming days. Joshua Mercer, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
In the small window between harvest and sowing, Spencer Gulf farmers will descend on Clare for their annual meetup. The Get the Crop In seminar kicks off next Wednesday.
Growers enjoy networking just as much as the next person.
While they're learning, they're also chatting and ultimately learning from each other. So certainly there's a social aspect to it, but there's also what they're picking up from not just their neighbour who they see more often, but someone who might be farming in the next district or a little bit further afield.
The workshop has been running for the past 20 years. A broad range of seminars are on offer, including highly anticipated guest speaker, Red Hill and Kangaroo Island farmer Ben Mumford.
And whilst he's very modest about what he might be able to share, his story is so fascinating. So he's going to talk about his operations.
Another topical seminar, Carbon and Your Farm Business, presented by PIRSA.
Just talk to people about what soil carbon is, why we measure it, why we're thinking about that. And we've got a grower coming along to talk about how he had his farm baseline measured.
With farming comes a huge mental toll that only those in the industry understand. Farmer and psychologist Stephanie Smith will be on deck to discuss coping mechanisms.
And that's just about acknowledging that there are so many tricky situations we're faced with in our business and personal lives, and sometimes just finding an extra trick or tip to help deal with that can really change the way we face the next day.
And at the heart of the event is Heartfield's research update and key trial findings, presented by researchers. Registrations are available online for next Wednesday's event in Clare. Annabelle Francis, 7 Spencer Golf News.
After almost 2 decades of service, Lifeline Broken Hill said goodbye to one of their long-term staff members. Financial counsellor Sherry Wilkins called it a day after 18 years with the organisation. Staff and family gathered for afternoon tea and to share some stories.
It's been a wonderful career. So I go out sort of with a heavy heart because I just loved what I did. I loved working at Lifeline, they were wonderful. But I do want to do the next step and do the grandmothery thing.
Lifeline will be looking to get a new financial counsellor in the near future, but well done, Sherry. Stay with us. After the break, the price of diesel drops in some Spencer Gulf cities. And it's the first day of autumn. We'll have the weather details with Alex Sykes. Welcome back. If you're planning a getaway this weekend, it might be a good idea to fill up at the Bowser now, with some fuel prices dropping fast. Here's Daniel Pizarro with this week's Fuel Watch.
If you're a diesel user, then you're in luck with prices falling by a fair bit, but not so good news for LPG users. Here's the latest prices. Looking at unleaded first, and there's been small increases at the pump in Port Lincoln and Port Pirie, but not by much. Port Augusta saw a massive drop from last week. You can fetch unleaded for just under $1.80 per litre today, down 6 cents. Broken Hill saw a similar drop in price. It's a tad cheaper at $1.84. But Adelaide again saw the cheapest. You can fill up with unleaded for just under $1.65. Diesel is seeing green arrows across the board, so fill up now. Port Lincoln and Whyalla are the same price at $1.97.9. Port Pirie, the most expensive, at $2.02 a litre. Kadina is fetching the cheapest in the region at under $1.95, but the state capital beating that with just under $1.92. Finally to Autogas, and there still hasn't been much of a shift in prices from last week in Port Lincoln, Whyalla and Broken Hill. But Port Augusta's LPG price has dropped dramatically to under $1.26 per litre. Prices are up in Port Pirie, Kadina and Adelaide, where it's now 10 cents more expensive at under $1.10 per litre. Just remember these prices are average across the region and don't reflect any particular outlet. If you see petrol any cheaper, let us know. And Maddie, with these prices the way they are, I'm thinking of taking a bit of a road trip. Want to tag along?
Not on a work night, Daniel, but thanks for the invite. Well, it's time now to take a look at what's happening in the weather with Alex Sykes. Alex, how was the first day of the new season?
Maddie, it was a bit windy in Port Augusta this morning, recording gusts of up to 56 kilometres an hour. But other than that, it was the perfect autumn day. Elsewhere, it got to around 24 in Whyalla today. It was a sunny start to March in Port Pirie, recording a touch under 28 degrees mid-afternoon. Woodner reached 27 just after 3 p.m. Looking more broadly at today's weather map now, 27 in Port Augusta and Woodner, 24 in Port Lincoln, 26 in both Kadina and Broken Hill. Taking a look at the satellite image now, low cloud in the southeast with onshore winds isn't bringing any rain. Clear skies elsewhere. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. South to southeasterly winds 15 to 25 knots, seas around 1 metre, increasing to 1.5 metres by early evening, and south to southwesterly swell below 1 metre, increasing to 1.5 metres. Cloudy in Port Lincoln and Cleve tomorrow between 14 and 22 degrees. Mostly sunny in Woodner on Thursday, 29 degrees, after an overnight low of 10. Between 15 and 25 in Whyalla, sunny in Port Augusta, set to reach a high of 28 degrees there. Partly cloudy in Kadina, down to 11 tonight. 26 tomorrow. Blue skies in Port Pirie, a high of 28 degrees there, between 8 and 25 in Clare, and sunny in Broken Hill, 29 degrees, down to 13 tonight. Taking a look further through the week now, starting with Friday's forecast. Sunny conditions across most of the Spencer Gulf except for Port Lincoln. A cloudy top of 23 degrees there. Woodner, Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Broken Hill will all reach 30 degrees or above. 27 on on the way for both Whyalla and Adelaide. Moving on to Saturday's outlook now, the temperatures are creeping back up into the low to mid 30s. Sunny and 36 in Cooper Pedy, blue skies around Whyalla, Port Pirie, Broken Hill, Port Augusta and Woodner. Temperatures ranging between 31 and 25 in those cities. 28 in Adelaide, 25 in Port Lincoln. Finally, taking a look at how Sunday is shaping up, even warmer temperatures to end the weekend. Windy and 41 in Cooper Pedy, partly cloudy and 39 in Port Augusta. Port Lincoln showers and 27. Sunny over the border in Broken Hill, 37 degrees with some light winds up to 25 kilometres an hour. And that's all the weather from me for tonight. I'll see you a little later with an update. It's back to you, Maddie.
Thanks for that, Alex. And that's the local news this Wednesday. I'm Madeline Kerr. From all of us here, thanks for joining us. I'll have updates a little later, but until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.